Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram. We find one verse in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Andayatandya Upaniyamana. Those people who are hoping for happiness through material advancement are spiritually blind. Andayatandya, blind. They do not know the factual goal of life. Generally, people think the goal of life means to work, earn some money, and somehow enjoy life. But according to the ancient wisdom of the Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Purana, this is not the actual goal of life. This we find in any other species of life: eating, meeting, not eating, mating, eating, so many meetings we have. Eating, mating, defending, sleeping, that we find in any species. The actual purpose of human life is to attain full self-realization. The self, in this sense, does not refer to the physical body, that we know already. Everybody has his own nationality. You have your main family identity is already there, based on the physical body. Then what does the self refer to? It refers to the soul, Atma. And that soul is eternal. But now we have forgotten that identity, our eternal identity. And we only identify with our temporary identity, this physical body, and everything related to the physical body. That is, of course, also important. Everybody needs an identity. The place we took birth, or the land that is considered to be worshipable also, but still there's something superior. And that superior means sat in Sanskrit, sat. That which does not change, there's no beginning, there's no end. Na jayate na mriyate vātavāchin, the Bhagavad Gita. That for the soul, na jayate, there's no birth. Mriyate, mritu means death, finished. No, there's no death. No birth, no death for the soul. That is our higher identity. And that's the purpose of human life. To fully realize that eternal identity, which is full of bliss, full of knowledge. This material world, there's so much ignorance. If you study the nature of the children, so much ignorance is there. They want to stick their small fingers into the two holes in the socket. Very dangerous. You have to pull back and say, don't do this, it's dangerous. Or they want to touch the fire with their head. So much ignorance. That's why we have to go to school, high school, university, study. Because by nature, this world is full of ignorance. But as an existence, can you imagine you don't have to go to school? You don't have to go to high school. You don't have to go to work. by nature that existence is full of bliss, full of joy, eternal. And it's not getting stagnant at one point. Here we have to experience suffering also in order to be able to appreciate enjoyment or happiness. It's the world of duality. But that transcendental, that spiritual bliss, it is ever increasing, never stagnant, eternally increasing. Too much for our brain. So that existence is there. So spiritually blind, the blind is very important. People who are spiritually blind, they just simply don't understand the purpose of a spiritual life, spiritual practices. They cannot understand. It's like take the color green. Now, how can you explain the color green to a blind person? Any suggestions? How can you explain the color green to a blind person? You might try to explain, well, you see it's a combination of yellow and blue, but it also doesn't matter. If the blind person never experiences, doesn't know for the yellow colors, for the blue colors, how will you explain? Any ideas? No? So therefore this blind, this Andayatandaya Upaniyamana is such an important point. They are blind, spiritually blind. Doesn't matter how much you try to explain, they simply cannot understand. But there's a process of understanding. Like if a blind person is fortunate, it might undergo some kind of operation and then they'll see again. That process exists. That although we are spiritually blind, still we can see we're undergoing a particular process. And that process is, according to different ages and times, the different processes. The Satya Yuga, the golden age, there was one process. Meditation, dhyana, Ashtanga Yoga. And nowadays people also practice yoga, but it's a little bit different. It's more like gymnastics. The real yoga, nowadays we cannot practice, not possible. Real Ashtanga Yoga. Like the yogi, the ancient Ashtanga Yoga system, he had to practice pranayama till he begins to neutralize the incoming breath and the outgoing breath. It has to be neutralized. And then at one point, he stops breathing. First for 10 minutes, then half an hour, gradually increasing. He stops eventually breathing. Some of these yogis even, they go underneath the water. Saubhari Muni is one example of a great, very powerful yogi of the past. He meditated underneath the water. No more breathing. And who can do this nowadays? Sometimes I'm hearing what kind of yoga you practice, Ashtanga yoga. Hare Krishna. Good luck. It's too difficult. Kritaya dhyayato Vishnu. Kritaya dhyayato dhyana. That was the process of the Krita Satya Yoga. Kritaya dhyayato Vishnu. Kretayam yajato makai. Kretayam, Kreta Yoga. Next yoga. Yajato, yajna. Sacrifices. That was the recommended process to attain the same full self-realization. as in the previous yoga, the yogis attained. The sacrifices, yajna, fire sacrifice, a very, very complex process. Nowadays, still in India, you can see some fire sacrifices are being performed in so many different places, different locations. Small sacrifices, gigantic sacrifices I have seen in India. There was one sacrifice lasting almost 1 month. Every day, sacrifice. So many mantras are being chanted. And still, there is nothing in comparison to the fire sacrifices practiced in the Treta Yuga. And then the perfection was when the sacrifice was successful. Then the Yajna Purusha, Lord Vishnu, he manifested out of the fire and he gave us darshan. And then people attained just by the darshan of Lord Vishnu, they attained full self-realization. Kritaya Bhakti Vishnu, Retha Vyashato Makai, Dvapare Parishata Jam. Next Yuga, Dvapara Yuga, Dvapare Parishata Jam. Then the temple, gorgeous temple worship was recommended. It's not what we do. We do some humble worship. But that gorgeous temple worship, it was entirely different. Extremely complex process. And by that process, at that time, in the previous age, previous yoga, then people attained full self-realization. And Kalau Tat Hari Kirtana, Kalau, this Kali Yuga. And now we are living in the Kali Yuga. People are short-lived. Memory is also very short. Where are my glasses? On your nose. Memory very short. Short memory. That's why we need computer and so much technology to memorize memory. Imagine Bhagavad Gita was spoken by Lord Krishna. How many verses Bhagavad Gita?
700.
700 verses Bhagavad Gita. Perfect Sanskrit grammar, Sanskrit poetry, perfect. Because Krishna is spoken. 700 verses. Srimad Bhagavatam. How many verses? 18,000 something? 18,000 verses. Srimad Bhagavatam. Shukadeva Goswami spoken out of memory. And even if you study now Srimad Bhagavatam, the verses, the syllables always match. Like you have either 14 syllables, 21 syllables, always the same, each verse, same amount of syllables. How is that possible? Out of memory, 18,000. So that time people, they lived in the previous age, 1,000 years. Then that age before, Treta Yuga, 10,000 years. Satya Yuga, lifespan 100,000 years. This age of Kali, maximum 100. Some people live a little more. But the average people, they do not live more than the 70, 80, 90 years. Bus finish. So in this particular age, we require the same extremely powerful process. Because people do not have the required qualifications any longer to attain full self-realization. We don't have the lifespan, we don't have the intelligence, we don't have the capacity to practice any of the previous yoga dharmas, processes of civilization. So by Lord Krishna's grace, by his kindness, that he descended into this world as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he gave us the Yoga Dharma for this particular age. The process by which we can attain the exact same full self-realization without any compromise, same result. And that process has to be simple to be able that as many people as possible can practice it. And that's the chanting, Harinam, chanting of the transcendental vibration of the eternal names of Lord Krishna. There's nothing more powerful than that, because Krishna's name and he himself, same, no difference. That's the nature of the absolute plane, that the object, name of the object is no difference. So here in this world, we don't have experience of that. The name water, substance water, there's a difference. If you're thirsty, you cannot just chant water, 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 then when it has it. You need the substance water. But on the transcendental plane, in the spiritual world, no difference between the name and the substance. There's absolutely no difference between Lord Krishna, the absolute truth, the supreme personality of Godhead, and his name. There's no difference. Vinadvan Namanamino, no difference. So just by chanting Lord Krishna's name, Hare Krishna, we factually associate with Lord Krishna. Process is very simple. We just did it. We were chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Hare Hare. Very simple. You don't have to do more. Just chant Mahamantra, Hare Krishna. And then how to properly chant, that's why we have to follow some basic rules and regulations. They're not impossible to follow. So that gradually one has to learn to follow these 4 rules and regulations. Live as much as possible a sattvic life, because a rajasic life or tamasic life will be very difficult to make progress, spiritual progress. So this sattvic life, always recommended. In order to successfully practice any spiritual discipline, the sattvic life is important. But that we can also learn what is sattvic food in the mode of goodness of sattva. What is it that we can learn? What activities to perform in sattva that we can study, we can learn, not too complicated. And if we live the sattvic life, follow basic rules, regulations, and chant every day minimum amount of Hare Krishna, because our mind constantly is associated with so many material things. Isn't that throughout the day? So many material issues, topics circulating in our mind. But we must come to the platform of thinking about Krishna, spiritual subject matters, spiritual topics. And then when the mind is filled with the spiritual thoughts, then we make naturally spiritual progress more and more. So this point of being spiritually blind, people cannot, sometimes we wonder why people don't understand this Krishna consciousness. We try to explain to someone, they just understand nothing. What are you talking about? So, what is this about? Some ghost? What is this stuff? They cannot understand. Blind. But that's the process. We always have to remember that's the process, and if we follow that process, we will be successful. Hare Krishna. Are there any comments, questions, some thoughts you'd like to share? Yes.
You mentioned about the different Yuga dharmas, and we are in this Kali Yuga, we are chanting the Harinam. But still we have the other Yuga dharmas processes in use in ISKCON, but not in the same extent and this in the respective yugas, but still they are there. Can you say about something, how should we observe this phenomena?
How to observe that some other, we still do fire yagas, etc.
Yes.
That's your point. So these are parts of the Pancharatrika Vidi worship. So we practice different types of worship. But it is all meant to simply inspire us to chant Hare Krishna. This is why Srila Prabhupada, he in Vrindavan, at the installation of Vrindavan Krishna Balaram Mandir temple, the local pandits and the smarter brahmanas, they would not accept a bona fide installation of deities and opening of the temple just by chanting Hare Krishna. They would not accept it's not bona fide. So they wanted to see the gorgeous fire sacrifice. So Srila Prabhupada, all right, arrange some fire sacrifice. But then he said, during the fire sacrifice, there should be always, all the time, chanting Hare Krishna. Then for us, this is bona fide. If it would be just a fire sacrifice, no chanting Hare Krishna, this is not bona fide. But they think, smartest thing is bona fide. So some things we do, we follow. Deity worship. Deity worship is meant, as we discussed with previous Yoga, temple worship, deity worship. So still the Vaishnava Acharyas, they gave us a process, worshiping the deity is simple. So that also has to be done. Because we are not advanced enough to just chant the whole day Hare Krishna. We are not advanced enough. So we need to engage our senses, not just the tongue and the ears. We need to engage the other senses as well. Otherwise, they will be engaged in something else. So the previous Vaishnava Acharyas, they give us some processes which are not exactly necessary, but they're helpful. They're helpful for our engaging our other senses in Krishna's service, like worshipping the deities. Then the other senses are engaged. And also the deities are non-different, again, non-different from Krishna. So the perfectional stage, one can see the deities as Krishna, not representing Krishna, but Krishna's personally present. A Siddha Purush, perfected being, you can see. So the main point is chanting Hare Krishna. If we do fire sacrifice, chant Hare Krishna. If we do anything else, the most important is chanting Hare Krishna. We should always keep this in the forefront of all our activities and simply chant Hare Krishna. There's nothing more important and nothing more effective and purifying.
It's mentioned in the Srimad Bhagavatam that in this particular Yuga cycle, the Dwapara Yuga and the Treta Yuga, they switch places. What is the reason for this?
It's like sometimes the months, they also overlap. Sometimes they overlap. Then we have to talk about astronomy. A little complex, a little complicated. So these yogas, after an extremely long period, they sometimes overlap. We cannot get too much into details, too technical. The fact remains now we are in the Kali Yuga. Now we're in the Kali Yuga. Any other thoughts? Good, then we can continue with the program. Thank you very much, Hare Krishna.
So Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you very much, His Holiness Bhakti Vaibhava Swami Maharaj. We are very, very happy that you have been here with us and your